Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States of America, once said, "I see in the near future a crisis approaching that unnerves me and causes me to tremble for the safety of my country. Corporations have been enthroned and an era of corruption in high places will follow, and the money power of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudice of the people until all wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed."
Corruption erodes the trust we have in the public sector to loot in our best interests. It wastes taxes and rates meant for important community projects. This results in poor quality services or infrastructure, or worse, projects never getting off the ground. That saying was very prophetic.
Welcome to The Eagle, a program that comes your way from the stable of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. On the program, we discuss economic and financial crimes issues, how these issues affect each one of us and their overriding consequences on the society, plus how we can work individually and as a group to tackle the menace. My name is Aisha Muhammad, and presenting with me is
Abbas Abubakar. On today's episode, we will be looking at how corruption is wasting national assets, the way forward. But first, we look at events that happen within the EFCC.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FRIS, has expressed gratitude to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for assisting it in meeting up with the federal government's 2025 revenue target. This appreciation was made in Abuja by the executive chairman of the service, Zach Adedeji, when he led his management team on a courtesy visit to the executive chairman of the EFCC, Ola Olukoyede, at the commission's corporate headquarters in Abuja. Our reporter here completes the story.
The FIRS boss stated that the president had praised them for meeting the revenue target, and that as human, it would be wrong to assume that they are the only ones doing the job. And that is why they took it upon themselves to visit the EFCC and share with them Mr. President's appreciation. Speaking further, Adedeji stated that their visit is to commend the EFCC chairman for his support and to seek his cooperation, adding that the main advertisement of compliance is when people begin to see what we use the money we collected for, and in achieving that goal, the EFCC is critical. In his response, Olukoyede praised Adedeji and the FIRS for achieving the revenue target and pledged EFCC's readiness for more collaboration and support for the service. He congratulated the FIRS boss on the feat he achieved in the short period, adding that this is the first time in the history of Nigeria that we met our revenue target by August. Olukoyede retreated the commitment of the EFCC in fighting tax fraud in the country, which recently received validation from the Court of Appeal. Speaking on the working relation between the two agencies of government, the EFCC's boss pointed out that the two agencies have been having a joint task force over the years and will continue to work together for the betterment of Nigeria. I am Chinonso Eni, reporting for The Eagle.
The executive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Ola Olukoyede, has expressed the commission's readiness to work with the Presidential Committee on Campaign Against Social Vices in secondary and tertiary institutions to tackle economic and financial crimes and other acts of corruption among students. He stated this recently in Abuja when the chairman, Presidential Special Committee on Campaign Against Social Vices in Secondary and Tertiary Institutions, Professor Jerry Ugokwe, led members of his team to the Commission's headquarters on a courtesy visit. Our reporter completes the story.
The EFCC chairman, who spoke through the director, Fraud Risk Assessment and Control, FRAC, CE Ibrahim Shazali, that the Commission had zero tolerance for social vices and would spare no expense to ensure that integrity and right conduct are enshrined in schools.
very, very much ready to collaborate with you. We'll give you all the support you need. As I've said it earlier, we already have an existing zero tolerance and integrity clubs, which you will just key in so that we'll continue and collaborate with you.
He further stated that the Commission was more focused on preventive modalities, which include sensitization and reorientation, because they are easy, cheap, and in tandem with the mandate of the Commission. He added that the EFCC was ready to collaborate with all stakeholders to rid Nigeria of corruption, economic and financial crimes. On his part, the chairman, Presidential Special Committee on Campaign Against Social Vices in Secondary and Tertiary Institutions, Professor Jerry Ogokwe, stated that the fight against corruption and financial crimes cannot be sustained without building the right values among the younger generation. He added that the purpose of setting up the committee is to design, coordinate, and implement a comprehensive national campaign against social vices in Nigerian secondary schools and tertiary institutions.
Allow me to highlight some of the activities our committee has commenced and those planned in collaborating with partners such as the EFCC. Number one is baseline assessment. We are mapping the prevalence of social vices in schools across 6 geopolitical zones. We are also carrying out a national campus campaign, a flagship program to be launched soon, beginning with select secondary schools and universities, focusing on anti-corruption, anti-cultism, and anti-digital responsibility.
Ogokwe also pointed out that the 4 pillars of the committee include awareness and sensitization, capacity building and training, policy and advocacy, collaboration and enforcement support. He called on the EFCC to sustain its efforts in fighting economic and financial crimes, maintaining that the joint campus sensitization programs, anti-corruption clubs in schools, annual anti-corruption essay competitions, capacity building, and media campaigns will consolidate gains in the fight against vices.
There is no gainsaying that corruption possesses an overwhelming challenge to the development of Nigeria in areas of governance and infrastructure, making it nearly impossible for Nigeria to develop. This, coupled with the humongous wastage of resources and a denting image of the international stage. Today on our interview segment, we will look at how corruption is wasting national assets and what needs to be done to mitigate this malady. Over to you, Miracle.
Corruption has emerged as one of the greatest obstacles to our country's advancement. Public funds intended for infrastructure, healthcare, education, and social development are often misappropriated through deceitful means, resulting in significant hardships for citizens. During this program, we will dive into how corruption robs our national resources, the immediate impacts, and most crucially, the tangible solutions that can lead us towards transparency, responsibility, and sustainable growth. In this segment, I have with me as guest Assistant Commander of EFCC 2, David Impe, PhD. He is the Team Lead Special Duty Committee 4B and also the Head AMCON Desk here at the EFCC headquarters, as he gives insight on how corruption wastes national assets, the root cause, and its solution. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
How would you describe corruption in relation to management of national assets?
Corruption in the context of managing natural resources is like a leak in the foundation of a country's development. It quietly drains resources and trusts as well as opportunity from the people it is meant to serve into private pockets. It can therefore be defined as the abuse of power by officials or institutions entrusted with overseeing a nation's assets, such as oil resources, forests, mineral resources, or public funds generally. And so this abuse is carried out for personal gain rather than public gain that is supposed to serve.
In what particular ways does corruption lead to depletion of national asset?
Now, corruption deprives a nation of its resources through theft or mismanagement, and not necessarily just those two, but corruption in the context of managing natural resources could lead to direct financial loss. Ghost projects, for instance, money is allocated for roads, schools, and hospitals that are never built. Over invoicing or kickbacks, where contracts are inflated to benefit insiders or the operators in that industry, draining public coffers, to the detriment of public good. It also undermines infrastructural development. Corruption leads to substandard constructions, frequent project delays, and total abandonment, as the case may be. It could also lead to mismanagement of natural resources, where oil, gas resources, minerals, and forests are exploited, but the revenue from that exploitation does not benefit the people. The PricewaterhouseCoopers reported some time ago that corruption could cost up to 37% of the GDP of Nigeria by 2030 if it is not checked. And so all this, put together could also reduce direct foreign investment into the country, because investors avoid corrupt environment where their investment is in jeopardy. It can also shrink tax base or tax revenue. With corrupt environment, tax evasion is rampant, and so this, because it has a cascading effect, it also leads to erosion of capital, human capital development, because resources that are supposed to be used to fund education or healthcare, find themselves into private pocket and misappropriated, and so there's poor access, to quality services, as the case may be. And apart from that, corruption could lead to weakened institutions, where you have strong personalities and the institutions are weak, because embezzlement and mismanagement of resources are rampant. Ultimately, corruption in the management of natural resources could be detrimental in the aspect of an opportunity cost, because every naira, every resources that is exploited and not used for the development of the society is an opportunity cost, because that resources find itself into the private pocket while the public good is left.
Let's look at the ripple effect of corruption on our finances as a country. What are the financial repercussions of corruption on national growth and public service?
Now, corruption is like a slow poison. It doesn't just steal money. It erodes the very system that sustains a country. And so a country's development is in jeopardy where there is rampant corruption. To break it down, you can talk about stunted growth, stunted economic growth, where resources have been exploited, and then the revenue from those resources, that exploitation, is not used for the development of that society. And so you can talk about undevelopment, as it were, because resources have been exploited, but the revenue from it find itself into private pocket, starving the nation of development. It can also lead to widening of inequality, because where development takes place, people benefit from those investments that are made. People find gainful employment, and so the middle class is vibrant and rampant, which bridge the gap between the very rich and the poor in society. Poor healthcare services and other public infrastructure, other social infrastructure. Corruption will starve a nation, from fulfilling its social contract, because the concept of the social contract is that, of course, the state provides certain, amenities in exchange for the surrendering of right and liberty by the individual, so that the states then protect by providing those infrastructure, and then it can lead to weak infrastructure, erosion of democracy, public distrust, global image of course, damage. Like our society, we have very poor foreign image, as the case may be. Reduce foreign aids and investment into the country, and ultimately leads to brain drain, where people will leave the country, for greener pastures elsewhere.
Is there a connection between youth unemployment, inadequate infrastructure, and the corrupt management of these national assets?
There's an inverse correlation between good governance and development. And so there is a direct relationship between corruption and youth restiveness and underdevelopment generally. The more a country experiences corrupt tendencies and all that, the more you have youth restiveness. And because young people, because of their energies, will look for alternative to survival. And this alternative to survival will include topping mechanisms and all that, which the states will then describe as corruption. And so where corruption is at the barest minimum, development takes place, and then young people, and then generally the population of that country will find something meaningful to do, and so it will affect the level of interaction among the people.
How effective are anti-corruption agencies and also law enforcement agencies like the EFCC in mitigating asset waste?
I'll speak from the balance of the EFCC, that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has made notable stride in mitigating asset waste in Nigeria. But its effectiveness is mixed of impressive recoveries and persistent challenges. In 2024, for instance, there were massive recoveries of assets. EFCC recovered 250 billion in cash, plus tens of millions of foreign currencies as a result of its activity. And so the impunities that characterized the days of yore had significantly declined as a result of the activities of the EFCC. Another area of effectiveness is that there is massive, high-profile conviction. Conviction rates have continued to go up, and last year, 2024, the EFCC had the highest conviction any law enforcement in Africa had ever gotten in a single year, 3,500 criminal convictions. There is also proactive asset tracing. The EFCC had continued to trace, track, and attach assets linked to criminal activities for forfeiture. And so there are a number of interim forfeiture and final forfeiture that the EFCC has secured. Using the instrumentality of the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, of course, the EFCC has continued to leverage that legislation to recover assets using non-conviction based asset forfeiture. Having said this, there are challenges. Challenges in asset management gaps, challenges in public trust issues and all that, that people could come forward to volunteer information as to where, of course, assets that are tainted with corrupt activities are hidden. And so the EFCC, I would say, had done very well, and its model operandi had become a model for other law enforcement agencies to use.
How can the government and the citizen, and including the civil society organization, protect our national asset?
I'll say that protecting national resources and assets is a shared responsibility. And like a three-legged stool, it will collapse if any of the leg fails. And so protecting national assets requires policy and regulation, transparent accountability, independent oversight, digital governance, whistleblowing protection, and all that. And so for both the citizen, civil society, and the government, it must work together. They must work together to achieve results, which means that to be effective, it demands accountability, that the citizen will hold its leaders accountable. Yeah. Civil society must exercise oversight function as watchdog, and participate in governance processes, report abuse. Citizens can also report abuse using the instrumentality of the Whistleblowing Act or whistleblowing policy, because there's no law on ground yet. Advocacy and lobbying is the role of the civil society that, of course, must be employed to ensure that natural resources are managed effectively. Monitoring and reporting, legal support for whistleblowers and all that to come forward, and then capacity building for law enforcement agencies. That is the role of government.
So can the use of technology and digital tools help to curtail corruption in asset management?
Definitely. Technology is transforming how the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, for example, manages recovered assets. Now, turning to what it used to be a murky process of bidding for, asset disposal. For the first time, the EFCC launched its e-auction platform, where people go and bid for, of course, assets that are available for disposal, without the interference of human elements. And so I would say that it has widened public participation across Nigeria, and so you can stay anywhere and bid for an asset that is available. It also ensures real-time bidding tracking, because you do not, the chairman, for instance, if he wants to oversee what is happening, can sit in his office and watch looking at what is happening. So real-time bidding and tracking have become effective with the use of technology. It reduces manipulation and human, interference, and then clear audit trail for accountability. Whoever bought it, you can follow through to see who bought that. And now the EFCC has partnered with the National Space Research and Development Agency in developing tracking devices and applications that monitor the location and movement of assets. So I would say that the use of technology has, become handy in helping the EFCC in optimizing its internal system to manage, of course, digital records of seized assets and financial evidence, as well as case files.
Thank you so much, Doctor. But before I let you go, what are your final words? What is your final recommendation for our audience, for those listening or watching us?
Our national assets, whether oil fields, fuel, forests, public funds, or infrastructure, are not just economic tools. They are the inheritance of every Nigerian, the foundation of our future, and the fuel for our collective progress. But when these resources are stolen by a few individuals, natural resources become a liability. And to stop this, the people, the government, civil society must work together to protect natural resources, to protect the assets of the country, to benefit the people. We must demand transparency. We must hold, because those in power accountable, and we must treat every naira, every barrel of oil, every hectare of land as sacred, because they belong to all of us. And so, as a people, let us not wait for change. Let us be the change that secures our national wealth for generation yet unborn.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time, let's stand together against corruption for a better today and a stronger tomorrow. My name is Miracle Chukwuagoziem. Back to the studio for the rest of the program.
Well, you have heard it all. It is about time we come together as citizens of the most populous and great nation in Africa to fight this cankerworm. Let us join hands with the EFCC in fighting this monster called corruption and other forms of economic and financial crimes. Safeguard your integrity. Say something when you see something. My name is Abbas Abubakar.
And I am Aisha Muhammad. Don't forget to keep the discussion going through our email info@efcc.gov.ng. If you want to speak to our officers or representatives, you can call this line 0809 3322 644. Again, 0809 3322 644. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, X, and Instagram @official EFCC for all matters relating to economic and financial crimes. Do take care of yourself, be kind to one another. God bless Nigeria.